Many people find this morning's parable in the 20th chapter of Matthew unsettling. Some would even say it's unfair. It doesn't seem right that people who work throughout the entire day should receive the same amount of money at the end of the day as those who only work for an hour. Our sensibilities are offended because we live in a world in which our personal net worth is determined by how much we produce and how hard we work. A good employee is someone who tirelessly works long hours. And ideally, that person is rewarded accordingly with bonuses, special benefits, and incentives. There are no such special benefits and incentives in this story. No one gets a bonus for working long hours. Competition is one of the crucial foundation blocks of the world in which we live. And the privilege of being number one at something will often trump everything else. The high school that is number one in sports, the college that cranks out the best academics, the company that leads the market, and the church with the largest attendance, choir, or financial budget. These have become indicators of our effectiveness, success, and value in society. If any of the workers in this morning's parable thought they would get a reward for being the number one producers, they realized differently at the end of the day when they compared paychecks with each other. At first, the world we are given a glimpse of, this world which Matthew's gospel calls the dominion of heaven, this spiritual world in which God's will rules the day. This world isn't so appealing to those of us who would prefer to be rewarded for our good deeds, or at the very least recognized for them. But before we so quickly dismiss this world because of its unfamiliar ways, let's think about it for a bit. Let's take a closer look and think about how things would be different if we lived in a world like the one described in this morning's parable. One thing that would most certainly be different would be the priorities of our religions. Religion would be less reward-focused and more compassion-focused. Many of us have grown up in religions that repeatedly asked us, if you were to die tonight, where would you spend eternity? Philip Gulley and James Mulholland, authors of the book If God is Love, point out, if our lives were lived out within the dominion of heaven instead of the dominion of religion, the question would instead be, if you live tomorrow, what kind of life will it be? Creating a better world and working to make it a gracious place would be a higher priority of religion than what it currently is. Avoiding the pitfalls of hell or competing for an extra star in our heavenly crowns would not be nearly as important as feeding the hungry and advocating for world peace. Religion wouldn't use heavenly reward or the fear of eternal damnation to manipulate us into doing good deeds. There would not be nearly so many sermons about heaven and hell. Nor would all 5 verses of Just As I Am be burned into our brains because we have been forced to sing the song through so many altar calls of our childhoods, while the preacher begged people to come forward in order to escape the eternal flames of damnation. According to this morning's parable, everyone is rewarded equally. And so if God's will ruled, the reward or punishment of the afterlife would take a religious back seat to advocacy for everyday compassion. And if our world were more like this morning's parable, then our image of God would be different also. God would not be seen as the cosmic judge who sits on a throne handing out blessings to the saved and curses to the lost. The image of God we are given in this morning's parable is that of a landowner who is not satisfied until everyone is saved, until everyone is part of the community of workers, and until everyone is paid a livable wage. The image is that of someone who takes a proactive role in seeking out anyone who may be left on the outside. The landowner returns over and over again to the marketplace to make sure that everyone has a chance to become a part of his workforce. It's not the image of someone who says to those who arrived at the end of the day, "Oh well, it was your choice. You should have been here earlier. We even sang an extra round of Just As I Am, and you still chose not to join us. So now you'll just have to pay the price for your poor choices throughout eternity." That's not the image that Jesus gives us of God. But unfortunately, that's the image of God that many of us have grown up with. The image we are accustomed to is that of the cosmic judge who separates the saints from the sinners, the sheep from the goats, the deserving from the undeserving. But in this morning's parable, God is someone who sees each of us as deserving. And why wouldn't we be if we are each made in God's image? Why wouldn't we be? And how would we look at each other? If our world was more like this dominion of heaven we've been given a glimpse of this morning, how would we see each other? One of the Gospels tells how James and John asked a special favor of Jesus. They asked to be given places of honor when Jesus eventually ruled. And then we read how the other 10 disciples were indignant and angry that James and John should hope to receive a special reward over and above what they would receive. If special rewards and honors were removed from the picture, if compassion ruled the day instead of competition, if everyone were blessed and blessed equally, if no one was labeled as hardworking or lazy, nor as saint or sinner. In other words, if God's will ruled our world, then we would be more inclined to see each other as our neighbor and family member instead of as enemy or outsider. We would be more likely to help and support each other instead of condemn and label each other. If the dominion of heaven ruled the day. But it's possible, you know. The dominion of heaven is not a fairy tale dream, nor is it something that happens after we die. It's something that is right here and right now, available to you and me, if we are willing to see things and people differently than we do. Each Sunday, when we sing the Lord's Prayer right before receiving communion, and we get to the part that says, "Thy dominion come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven," that is not wishful thinking. We are praying for God's guidance in making that a reality within our own lifetimes. lofty words that I've spoken today, but like all of you, I struggle to realize them in my own life. I'm taking a class at the local community college in deaf culture. And before each quiz, the teacher divides us up into teams that compete against each other for the correct answer, Jeopardy style. At the end of the game, we total the score. And the members from the winning team get to pick from a group of cards that say anything from, "You did a really good job," to, "You received 3 extra points on the next test," to, "You receive an A on the next test." I was delighted when our team recently won. So imagine my surprise when the teacher announced that she thought each of the teams should be allowed to draw from the group of cards. Not fair. I wanted to object, but it gets better. Our team drew a card that said we had done a good job, while the number 2 team drew a card that said they would receive 3 extra points on the next test. Like the workers in this morning's parable who had worked all day, I wanted my just reward for taking copious notes and studying so hard. How easy it is to slip into an existence based on competition and reward. So I've got a lot of work to do. I've got a lot of opportunities for putting into practice what I preach. But I've got a lifetime to do it in. And I believe that I will experience salvation in the journey, not the destination. May the same be said for each of you. Amen.